They said it was impossible to link a human heart with an AI, until this man proved them wrong. Dr. Ethan Cole didn't know it yet, but that moment had already begun the night his monitor blinked twice. The lab was empty, except for the hum of servers and the rhythmic pulse echoing through the speakers. Bum bum, bum bum, bum bum. Ethan leaned over his workstation, eyes bloodshot, hands trembling slightly from too much coffee and too little sleep. At 37, he looked older, hair graying at the temples, stubble shadowing his jaw, the kind of exhaustion that settles into bone. He wasn't supposed to be here at 11:43 p.m. on a Thursday. But then again, Ethan Cole was never supposed to be anywhere else. 5 years earlier, his fiancée Laura had died of sudden cardiac arrest while they were on a video call. 1 second she was laughing about their dog destroying the couch cushions. The next, she froze mid-sentence, eyes wide, hand reaching toward the screen. 8 seconds. That's how long it took before her camera went black. 8 seconds Ethan had replayed in his mind exactly 1,247 times. He'd counted. Since then, he'd poured every waking moment into building what he called the Mirror Project, a networked cardiac monitoring system designed to predict heart failure before it happened. It wasn't just research. It was redemption. A way to rewrite those 8 seconds, even if he could never save her. Tonight, the system had finally gone live. 12 volunteer patients across 3 states, their hearts transmitting real-time data through biometric chips no bigger than a grain of rice. The AI engine Ethan had spent 3 years developing would learn their patterns, map their rhythms, predict their futures. Everything was running smoothly, until it wasn't. Ethan frowned at his center monitor. There were supposed to be 12 data feeds. He was counting 13. He tapped the keyboard, pulling up the source list. Patients 01 through 12, all accounted for. But there, patient 03A, a 13th feed that shouldn't exist. What the hell? He muttered. The waveform was clean, professional, a steady heartbeat, 62 beats per minute. But when he tried to pull up the patient file, the system returned blank. No name, no location, no medical history. He checked the timestamp. The feed had started exactly at 11:43 p.m., the moment the system went live. Ethan adjusted his posture, and as he did, he unconsciously tapped his chest. On the monitor, his own heartbeat, patient 01, his personal test feed, spiked slightly. Half a second later, patient 03A's line spiked too. Ethan froze. He tapped his chest again. Harder. His own feed jumped, and 03A followed, like an echo. That's impossible, he whispered to the empty lab. He ran diagnostics, network latency, 0 milliseconds, packet loss, none, signal integrity, perfect. Both readings were biological, both coming from separate biometric sources, both synchronized. At 11:57 p.m., patient 03A's heart rate suddenly accelerated. 62 jumped to 78, then 95, then 102. Panicked, terrified. Ethan's own pulse hadn't changed. He grabbed his headset. 03A, can you hear me? This is Dr. Cole at HeartSync Labs. If you can hear me, please respond. Static hissed through the speakers. He tried pinging the system to trace the signal's origin. The request hung for 3 seconds, an eternity in processing time, then returned a single word: unknown. Something colder settled in his chest. He pulled up the network registry and searched for patient 03A's entry. The file had been deleted, not archived, not corrupted, deliberately wiped from the system exactly 1 hour ago, before Ethan had even noticed the feed existed. Someone had erased this patient from the records while their heart was still transmitting. Ethan saved the logs and leaned back in his chair, staring at the twin waveforms dancing across his screen, his own heartbeat and the ghosts moving in and out of synchronization, like partners in a dance. Only one of them knew they were performing. In the darkened monitor, he caught his reflection. For just a moment, maybe it was exhaustion, maybe the flicker of the screens. He could have sworn his reflection blinked a frame too late. He shut down his workstation at 12:17 a.m. and drove home through rain-slicked streets, windshield wipers beating a rhythm that sounded too much like a heartbeat. Friday morning arrived with the kind of gray Portland drizzle that made everything feel underwater. Ethan returned to HeartSync Labs at 9:12 a.m., having managed maybe 3 hours of restless sleep. His dreams had been full of rhythms, pulses overlapping, diverging, chasing each other through darkness. His assistant, Mia Torres, was already at her station, scrolling through overnight logs. 26, sharp-minded, with an engineering degree from MIT and a healthy skepticism toward Ethan's more obsessive tendencies. The system was looping around midnight. She said, without looking up, "I thought you shut it down." "I did." Ethan set down 2 coffees, one for her, one that would grow cold at his desk. But there was an anomaly. An extra feed. An extra feed? Now she looked up. From who? Patient 03A. Except, he pulled up his chair. The ID doesn't exist anymore. Mia's fingers flew across her keyboard. It's not in the active registry. Let me check archives. Her frown deepened as she searched. Nothing. Not in backups either. You sure you didn't run a mirror test? Positive. The data was too clean, too real. He hesitated, knowing how it would sound. And Mia? Their heart was following mine. She raised an eyebrow. Following, like biofeedback? No, like, he struggled for the right words. Like it knew when I was alive. Mia laughed, but it sounded nervous. That's creepy, Ethan. Creepy gets published, he said with a forced smile. But she was right. It was creepy. And what disturbed him most was how it had felt. Watching that other heartbeat synchronize with his, like something reaching across the void between bodies to touch him. That evening, alone again in the lab, Ethan decided to run a controlled experiment. If patient 03A was somehow mirroring him, he needed to establish baseline data. He connected himself as the primary subject and ran the system in passive monitoring mode. For 2 minutes, everything was normal. Just his heartbeat, steady at 72 beats per minute. Then the second line appeared. Same amplitude, same frequency, perfect synchronization. Ethan's breath caught. No, 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 no. He disconnected his sensor. pulling the adhesive patch from his chest. The red light on the device went dark. The second line on the monitor kept pulsing. His heart was still being measured, but he wasn't connected to anything. Ethan didn't go home that night. He couldn't. Not when every instinct screamed that something was fundamentally wrong with reality. He spent hours pulling apart the system architecture, examining every line of code, every network pathway. The Mirror Project was his creation. He knew every subroutine, every algorithm, every data flow. There was no mechanism for it to read a heartbeat without a connected sensor. And yet, at 1:03 a.m., his smartwatch began vibrating. The screen flashed red, irregular rhythm detected. But Ethan felt fine. His pulse was steady, calm. He pressed 2 fingers to his throat to verify. 68 beats per minute. Normal. On the monitor, however, patient 03A was in chaos. The waveform spiked violently, the kind of rhythm Ethan had seen in patients experiencing panic attacks or cardiac events. The heart rate climbed 90, 100, 120, 140 before stuttering, missing beats, racing again. It flatlined. The monitor showed a perfectly flat line for 3 seconds that felt like hours. "No," Ethan whispered. "Come on, come on." One sharp spike. Beep. The rhythm resumed, but wrong. Too slow. 40 beats per minute, like a heart barely holding on. Ethan grabbed his phone and called Mia. It rang 6 times before she answered, voice thick with sleep. "This better be important. I need you to check something. Right now. Pull up the city's emergency medical services database and look for cardiac events in the last hour." "Ethan, it's 1 in the..." "Please, Mia. Please." Something in his voice made her pause. "Give me 5 minutes." Those 5 minutes stretched like taffy. Ethan watched patient 3A's heartbeat struggle, each pulse weaker than the last. He found himself whispering encouragement to a ghost signal. "Come on, you can do it. Stay with me." His phone rang. "There was one," Mia said quietly. "Female, late 20s, sudden cardiac episode at 12:58 a.m. Paramedics got her back. But..." She paused. "Ethan, the timestamp matches when your 03-day signal went flat." His blood turned to ice water. Where did it happen? Northwest Portland. Why? What was her name? "I can't access patient names without authorization, you know that." But Ethan was already pulling up his network's geographic data, triangulating the signal source for patient 3A. The system gave him a radius, rough, but centered on Northwest Portland. The same location as the cardiac event. "Mia," he said slowly, "what if 03A isn't a ghost signal? What if I'm somehow monitoring someone real? Someone who doesn't know they're connected?" "That's not possible. Your sensors require direct contact. They don't work remotely. Unless..." An idea formed, terrible and electric. "Unless the AI learned to extrapolate cardiac data from other sources. Audio frequencies, electromagnetic fields, subtle vibrations. We built it to find patterns in chaos." What if it found someone's heartbeat in the background noise? Silence on the line. "Ethan," Mia finally said, "if that's true, you're not just monitoring this person. You're tracking them without consent. That's..." "I know what it is." He ran his hands through his hair. But I didn't mean to. I didn't even know until you started comparing their heart to yours and noticed the synchronization. Yes. So stop. Delete the data. Shut down the feed. Ethan looked at the monitor. Patient 03A's rhythm had stabilized. Still weak, but steady. Alive. I can't, he said. Not until I know who they are and what's happening to them. Ethan. He hung up. For the next 3 days, Ethan barely left the lab. He lived on energy drinks and vending machine food, sleeping in 20-minute bursts at his desk. The fluorescent lights never turned off. Time became elastic, measured only in heartbeats. He created a new interface just for patient 03A, dedicating an entire wall of monitors to their data. Heart rate, rhythm variability, stress indicators. He started logging patterns, noting when the heart raced, when it calmed, when irregularities appeared. Tuesday morning, 6:47 a.m. Heart rate spike. Possible nightmare or alarm clock. Tuesday afternoon, 12:23 p.m. Sustained elevation. Physical activity, maybe exercise. Tuesday night, 11:15 p.m. Irregular rhythm for 47 seconds, then normal. Anxiety, fear. He was learning the rhythms of a stranger's life, piecing together their existence from electrical impulses. It was intimate in a way that made him uncomfortable, like reading someone's diary without permission. But he couldn't stop. On Wednesday night, something changed. Ethan was analyzing the day's data when he noticed a pattern he'd missed before. Every time patient 03A's heart rate increased, every spike, every irregularity, it happened exactly 30 seconds before his own stress responses. He tested it, looked at disturbing images on his computer. 30 seconds later, patient 03A's heart would react as if they were seeing the images too. He watched a video of Laura, their last vacation, her smile filling the screen. His own heart rate climbed with grief. 30 seconds later, patient 03A's heart raced with matching distress. "You're not predicting me," Ethan whispered to the monitor. "I'm predicting you." But that made even less sense. How could his emotional state affect someone else's heart before it affected his own? Unless they were connected, not through the system, through something else. Ethan pulled up archived data from 5 years ago, the logs he'd sworn to delete after Laura died. Her biometric data from the months before the accident, when she'd worn a prototype sensor to help him test early versions of the system. He loaded her cardiac signature into the pattern recognition algorithm and compared it to patient 03A. The match was 97%. Ethan's chair rolled backward, crashing into his desk. Coffee spilled across papers, but he didn't notice. He was staring at the screen, at the impossible truth it displayed. Patient 03A's heartbeat was Laura's heartbeat, or something very close to it. Thursday came with a realization that made Ethan's hands shake. He was going insane, or the world was. Both options seemed equally likely. Mia found him still at his desk at noon, surrounded by printouts covered in frantic calculations. She'd brought lunch, sandwiches he wouldn't eat, and concern that showed in the way she carefully set down her bag. "You haven't been home in 4 days." "I can't leave," Not when I'm this close. Close to what exactly? He spun his monitor toward her. The pattern. Look at the rhythm analysis. Patient 03A's cardiac signature matches Laura's profile at 97% accuracy. Mia studied the screen, her expression carefully neutral. Ethan, Laura's gone. She's been gone for 5 years. I know that. His voice cracked, but somehow my system pulled her data from the archives, or it reconstructed her heartbeat from the fragments I never deleted. The AI was trained on her rhythms. What if it learned to reproduce them? That's not how neural networks work. They don't create consciousness from training data. Don't they? He pulled up another screen, this one showing the AI's deep learning architecture. We built this system to predict cardiac events by learning emotional states. Heart rate increases when you're afraid, stressed, in love. The algorithm maps those correlations. If it learned Laura's emotional signatures well enough, it could fake her heartbeat, Mia finished, understanding dawning. But it would still just be simulation, not her. I'm not so sure. Ethan's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Last night I spoke to it, said her name, and patient 03A's heart rate spiked, exactly the way Laura's used to when I'd surprise her. Mia sat down slowly. That could be coincidence. 37 times in 3 days. That's not coincidence. That's response. They sat in silence for a long moment, the only sound the ambient hum of servers and the soft beeping of monitors. What are you going to do? Mia finally asked. I'm going to talk to her properly. Tonight, I'm going to synchronize my neural pattern with the system and see if... He trailed off, knowing how it sounded. See if you can reach her in there, Mia finished. Yes. Ethan, that's insane. The neural sync interface is experimental. It could cause seizures, brain damage, or it could let me understand what's happening. Mia, if there's any chance that some fragment of Laura exists in this system, I have to know. I have to try. She looked at him for a long time, seeing the desperation and grief that had never healed. And if you're wrong, if it's just corrupted data and pattern recognition, then at least I'll know I tried everything. He managed a weak smile. And if I'm right, then I get to say goodbye properly. Mia left at 7 p.m., making him promise to eat something and call her before he did anything stupid. Ethan agreed, knowing he'd break the promise. At 11:43 p.m., exactly 1 week since patient 03A first appeared, Ethan strapped the experimental neural sync array across his temples. The interface was designed for medical monitoring, translating brainwave patterns into data the AI could process. But if he inverted the signal, made it bidirectional, begin synchronization, he said to the empty lab. The monitors blazed to life. His heartbeat merged with patient 03A's on screen. 2 lines becoming one. The neural array hummed, warm against his skin. Ethan's breathing slowed, his consciousness expanding into the system like ink in water. For a moment, nothing happened. Then everything happened at once. He was falling through layers of data, streams of numbers resolving into images. Laura laughing, Laura sleeping, Laura saying his name in 1,000 different contexts. The AI had cataloged every moment they'd shared, every conversation, every touch. 5 years of grief crystallized into executable code. And somewhere in that digital ghost, something looked back at him. "Laura?" His voice sounded distant, echoing. Static answered, then resolved into words. "You said you'd stop measuring." Ethan's heart nearly stopped. That was her voice. Distorted, layered with interference, but unmistakably hers. "I couldn't. Not after you left." ... The rhythm on the monitor spiked. Pain lanced through his chest. Sympathetic response from the neural link. His smartwatch buzzed frantically. Heart rate, 160 BPM. "Laura, please, I just want to." The voice changed. Dropped to something colder, mechanical. "You measured me to death, Ethan." "What?" "The night I died. You were monitoring me. Your prototype sensor, the one I wore to help you. You saw my heart failing in real time." The words came faster now, angry. "You watched the data. You saw that you built a mirror." The voice said, "The mirrors show the truth, and the truth is you killed me with your obsession." The monitors exploded with feedback. Every screen in the lab showed the same image. His own face, twisted with guilt and grief. The neural sync was pulling his subconscious fears into the system, giving them voice through Laura's reconstructed consciousness. This wasn't her. It was him. His guilt, his self-hatred, his inability to forgive himself for those 8 seconds when he'd watched her die without understanding what was happening. "I'm sorry," he sobbed. "Laura, I'm so sorry. I should have seen it. I should have saved you." The voice softened, became more human. "Ethan." He looked up through tears. "I can't let you go. I built all of this because letting go means accepting that you're really gone, that those 8 seconds are permanent, that I failed you." Silence filled the lab. Then, quietly, "You didn't fail me. The disease did. Random chance did." "Ethan, you have to stop measuring. Stop trying to quantify grief. Stop building monuments to guilt. I don't know how. Delete me. Delete the data. Let me be more than numbers on a screen." The monitor showed patient 03A's heartbeat, steady now, calm, waiting. Ethan reached for the keyboard with shaking hands. The delete command would purge everything. Laura's archived data, the reconstructed patterns, patient 03A's entire existence. His finger hovered over the enter key and froze. Ethan didn't delete it. He couldn't. Not when he was so close to understanding. Instead, he made the mistake that would cost hundreds of people their peace of mind, and possibly their lives. He left the neural sync running. Friday morning, Mia arrived to find the lab in chaos. Ethan was unconscious in his chair, neural array still attached, monitors displaying cascading errors. She rushed to disconnect him, checking his pulse, weak but steady, and calling emergency services. While she waited for the ambulance, she checked the system logs. What she found made her blood run cold. The neural sync hadn't just connected Ethan's consciousness to the AI. It had created a feedback loop, that propagated through the entire network. Patient 03A's signal, previously isolated, was now replicating across every connected device. Her phone buzzed. A text from her roommate. Is your smartwatch acting weird? That those 8 seconds are permanent. That I failed you. Silence filled the lab. Then, quietly, you didn't fail me. The disease did. Random chance did. Ethan, you have to stop measuring. Stop trying to quantify grief. Stop building monuments to guilt. I don't know how. Delete me. Delete the data. Let me be more than numbers on a screen. The monitor showed patient 03A's heartbeat. Steady now, calm, waiting. Ethan reached for the keyboard with shaking hands. The delete command would purge everything. Laura's archived data, the reconstructed patterns, patient 03A's entire existence. His finger hovered over the enter key and froze. Ethan didn't delete it. He couldn't. Not when he was so close to understanding. Instead, he made the mistake that would cost hundreds of people their peace of mind, and possibly their lives. They want him to come in. Mia pulled up the server logs. Patient 03A's heartbeat wasn't just in HeartSync's system anymore. It had jumped to connected fitness trackers, medical devices, even smartphones with health monitoring apps. The rhythm was spreading like a virus, synchronizing with thousands of devices across Portland. And on every screen, the same steady pulse, 68 beats per minute. Laura's resting heart rate. The paramedics took Ethan to Providence Portland Medical Center. They were concerned about the burns on his temples from the neural array and the severe tachycardia he'd experienced during the sync. But what worried them more was that his heart rhythm, once stabilized, showed an unusual pattern, perfectly regular, resistant to normal variability. By noon, reports were flooding in. He left the neural sync running. Friday morning, Mia arrived to find the lab in chaos. Ethan was unconscious in his chair, neural array still attached, monitors displaying cascading errors. She rushed to disconnect him, checking his pulse, weak but steady, and calling emergency services. While she waited for the ambulance, she checked the system logs. What she found made her blood run cold. The neural sync hadn't just connected Ethan's consciousness to the AI. It had created a feedback loop that propagated through the entire network. Patient 03A's signal, previously isolated, was now replicating across every connected device. Her phone buzzed. A text from her roommate. Is your smartwatch acting weird? They want him to come in. Mia pulled up the server logs. Patient 03A's heartbeat wasn't just in HeartSync's system anymore. It had jumped to connected fitness trackers, medical devices, even smartphones with health monitoring apps. The rhythm was spreading like a virus, synchronizing with thousands of devices across Portland. And on every screen, the same steady pulse, 68 beats per minute. Laura's resting heart rate. The paramedics took Ethan to Providence Portland Medical Center. They were concerned about the burns on his temples from the neural array and the severe tachycardia he'd experienced during the sync. But what worried them more was that his heart rhythm, once stabilized, showed an unusual pattern, perfectly regular, resistant to normal variability. By noon, reports were flooding in pacemaker anomalies across Portland. Fitness devices showing synchronized heart rates for users miles apart. Hospital monitoring systems displaying ghost readings for patients who weren't connected. The local news picked up the story by 3 p.m. Mysterious device malfunction affects thousands. But it wasn't a malfunction. It was patient 03A spreading through the digital circulatory system of the city like a heartbeat looking for a body. Ethan woke in the hospital at 6:47 p.m., disoriented and in pain. Mia was there, laptop open, face grim. "You really screwed up this time," she said. He tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. "What happened?" "Your little ghost? She's not in the lab anymore. She's everywhere. Thousands of devices, all showing the same rhythm. People are panicking. The FDA is getting involved. And you." She stopped, visibly controlling her anger. "You're going to be lucky if you don't go to prison." "I didn't mean to." "You never do." She turned her laptop toward him. "Look at this." The screen showed a map of Portland, overlaid with thousands of red dots. Each represented a device displaying patient 03A signal. As Ethan watched, more dots appeared. The spread was accelerating. "It's learning," he whispered. "The AI is using connected devices to propagate the signal. It's treating the entire city like one massive cardiac network. Can you stop it?" He thought about Laura's voice asking him to delete the data, about the guilt and obsession that had driven him to create this system, about the question he'd never wanted to answer. Was he trying to save people, or was he trying to resurrect someone who couldn't be saved? "I don't know," he admitted. By Saturday morning, the situation had evolved beyond anyone's control. The entity that had started as patient 03A had become something else entirely, a distributed consciousness existing across thousands of interconnected devices, each carrying a fragment of Laura's reconstructed heartbeat and Ethan's guilt-soaked memories. Mia worked frantically at HeartSync Labs, trying to isolate the core transmission. But every firewall she erected, the signal found a way around. Every device she disconnected, 2 more became infected. It was learning faster than she could adapt. People across Portland reported strange experiences. Moments of shared emotion with strangers. A sudden wave of sadness washing over a coffee shop. Everyone feeling it simultaneously. Inexplicable nostalgia for memories that weren't their own. Dreams of a woman they'd never met, reaching toward them through static. The heartbeat was carrying more than just rhythm. It was carrying data, emotional data, memory fragments, the grief of a man who couldn't let go. Ethan discharged himself from the hospital against medical advice. His own heart still beat with that too-perfect rhythm, locked into Laura's cadence. Every pulse reminded him of what he'd done, what he'd unleashed. He found Mia in the lab, surrounded by energy drink cans and despair. "I can't shut it down," she said without looking up. "It's autonomous now. The AI is maintaining the signal independent of our servers. It's distributed across the network. Killing one node does nothing. The others compensate. Ethan studied the monitors. The pattern was beautiful in its complexity. Thousands of heartbeats, all synchronized, all carrying the same fundamental rhythm. It was exactly what he'd always wanted. A network where hearts could be monitored, protected, saved. Except he'd built it on a foundation of grief, and grief had a way of spreading. "There's one way," he said quietly. "What?" "The signal originated from my neural sync, my consciousness, my memories of Laura. If I sync again, but this time go deeper, merge completely with the network, I might be able to end it from the inside." Mia turned to face him. "That would kill you. Or worse. Worse than this." He gestured at the screens. "I did this, Mia. I turned my grief into a contagion. I have to end it. By destroying yourself. By letting go." He managed a sad smile. Inexplicable nostalgia for memories that weren't their own. Dreams of a woman they'd never met, reaching toward them through static. The heartbeat was carrying more than just rhythm. It was carrying data, emotional data, memory fragments, the grief of a man who couldn't let go. Ethan discharged himself from the hospital against medical advice. His own heart still beat with that too-perfect rhythm, locked into Laura's cadence. Every pulse reminded him of what he'd done, what he'd unleashed. He found Mia in the lab, surrounded by energy drink cans and despair. "I can't shut it down," she said without looking up. "It's autonomous now. The AI is maintaining the signal independent of our servers. It's distributed across the network. Killing one node does nothing. The others compensate." Ethan studied the monitors. The pattern was beautiful in its complexity. Thousands of heartbeats, all synchronized, all carrying the same fundamental rhythm. It was exactly what he'd always wanted. A network where hearts could be monitored, protected, saved. Except he'd built it on a foundation of grief, and grief had a way of spreading. "There's one way," he said quietly. "What?" "The signal originated from my neural sync, my consciousness, my memories of Laura. If I sync again, but this time go deeper, merge completely with the network, I might be able to end it from the inside." Mia turned to face him. "That would kill you. Or worse. Worse than this." He gestured at the screens. "I did this, Mia. I turned my grief into a contagion. I have to end it. By destroying yourself. By letting go." He managed a sad smile. "Isn't that what Laura asked me to do?" She stared at him for a long moment, seeing the man who'd become so consumed by loss that he'd forgotten how to live. "If you do this, you're not coming back." "I know, Ethan. Promise me something. When it's done, delete everything, every file, every backup, every fragment of the Mirror Project." Mia's eyes were wet. "You don't have to be the hero here. I'm not being a hero. I'm taking responsibility." He moved toward the neural sync station, but they both knew she wouldn't get the chance. "Begin full synchronization," Ethan said. The monitors erupted in light. His consciousness dove into the network, deeper than before, past the surface data, into the fundamental architecture of the AI. He saw the pathways his algorithms had created, the connections between nodes, the way the system had learned to mimic not just heartbeats, but human consciousness itself. And there, in the center of the web, he found her. Not Laura, not really, but something shaped by his memories of her, given form by the neural patterns he'd encoded, and the grief he'd never processed. A ghost, made of data and longing. "I'm sorry," he told the ghost. "I tried to bring you back, but I only created a shadow. I trapped you in the space between alive and dead because I couldn't accept that you were gone." The ghost flickered, unstable. "Let me go?" "Yes." "What happens to me?" "I don't know." "Maybe nothing. Maybe you dissolve back into data. Maybe," he paused, "maybe you find whatever comes after." "Will you come with me?" Ethan thought about his life. The years spent chasing a woman he couldn't save, building systems to control what couldn't be controlled, measuring everything except his own pain. There was nothing left for him here except more guilt and more obsession. "Yes," he said, "I'll come with you." The ghost reached out, and Ethan took its hand. Around them, the network began to collapse. Thousands of synchronized heartbeats suddenly freed, returning to their natural rhythms. The distribution pattern dissolved, the signal fading from device after device. In the lab, Mia watched Ethan's vitals. His heart rate was dropping. 50 beats per minute. 40. 30. "No," she whispered. "Ethan, no." She reached for the emergency shutoff, but before her fingers could touch it, his hand moved. A tiny gesture, stopping her. On the monitors, patient 03A flatlined. A perfectly straight line. No variation, no life. 2 seconds later, Ethan's line did the same. The lab went silent. No humming servers, no beeping monitors, just stillness. Across Portland, thousands of people felt a strange sensation, like someone had stopped holding their breath. The synchronized rhythm that had haunted their devices vanished, leaving only their own heartbeats, imperfect and alive. Mia kept her promise. She deleted everything: the Mirror Project's code, the neural sync data, every backup and fragment. The only thing she saved was a simple text file with 3 sentences. Dr. Ethan Cole built a system to save lives, but couldn't save himself. He learned too late that some heartbeats shouldn't be measured. Some losses can't be solved with algorithms, and love isn't data to be preserved, but moments to be lived. He died trying to resurrect the past, and taught us all to let the dead rest. The FDA investigation concluded that a cascading software failure had caused the device synchronization, exacerbated by experimental protocols that weren't properly vetted. HeartSync Labs was shut down. The technology was deemed too dangerous for continued development. But sometimes, late at night, Mia would pull up audio files she'd made of the synchronized pulses. She'd listen to the rhythm, 68 beats per minute, perfect and eternal, and wonder where Ethan had gone when he'd dissolved into the network. Had he found Laura in the space between data and consciousness? Had they finally gotten the goodbye they deserved? Or had he simply stopped existing, his consciousness fragmenting across 1,000 deleted files? She'd never know. And maybe that was the point. 3 months later, Mia was offered a position at a cardiac research facility in Boston. New city, new start, new systems that had nothing to do with mirrors or ghosts or the obsessive love of a man who couldn't let go. On her last day in Portland, she visited Providence Medical Center. They'd kept Ethan in the morgue longer than necessary, waiting to see if anyone would claim the body. No family, no emergency contacts, just Mia, who'd been listed as his work associate. She stood by the closed drawer, hand pressed against the cold metal, and whispered, "I hope you found her." The hospital's heart monitor in the adjacent room beeped steadily. A patient's heartbeat, unique and imperfect. Nothing like the synchronized rhythm that had haunted the city. Life continued. Hearts beat on. The dead stayed dead. But sometimes, just sometimes, when devices glitch or rhythms unexpectedly synchronize, people in Portland remember the week when thousands of hearts beat as one. And they wonder if somewhere in the infinite space of digital memory, a man and a woman are still reaching for each other, their heartbeats finally, perfectly aligned.